The moment the verdict was read aloud in a hushed Old Bailey courtroom, a single voice shattered the stillness. One of Helen Holland's relatives cried out from the public gallery, unable to contain the pain that had been building for nearly 2 years. "You've ruined our family with no consequences." Those words, raw and anguished, captured the depth of a tragedy that has cut across a family, a police force, and the quiet corner of the royal family that had simply been passing through that day. But they also opened the door to a far larger question. When a civilian grandmother dies in the path of a royal escort and no one is found legally responsible, what happens next? How does a family fight for accountability in a system they believe has failed them at every turn? Before we dive in, there's something I need to share with you. Over the past few days, thousands have watched these stories unfold, but most haven't subscribed. If you're one of them, I invite you now to join us. Subscribe to Crownverse so you never miss the next chapter in this unfolding royal history. 2 years earlier, on May 10, 2023, 81-year-old great-grandmother Helen Holland had been crossing West Cromwell Road in Earl's Court. She was visiting London, spending time with her sister, and enjoying the city she loved. A lifetime of routines, memories, and family moments had brought her to that pedestrian crossing. But in a matter of seconds, her life changed forever, and everyone who loved her was thrust into a nightmare they never imagined. The collision occurred during a police escort for Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh. Helen was struck by a BMW police motorbike ridden by PC Christopher Harrison, an officer with decades of experience in escort duties. He was permitted, under emergency driving regulations, to exceed the speed limit and pass through red lights if conditions were safe. But according to the prosecution's case, the issue was not whether he was allowed to speed, it was whether he exercised the duty of care required of him as he approached a pedestrian crossing. Evidence presented at trial revealed that the officer had been riding at speeds between 44 and 58 miles per hour in a 30 zone. He went through a red traffic signal. He did not activate his siren or his flashing lights. He did not sound his whistle. These facts are not allegations. They were accepted in court. The defense argued that despite this, his approach was careful and controlled until the moment Helen stepped into the road. They asserted he had no chance to react because, as he stated under oath, it was as if she was there on the road from almost nowhere, a claim the family strongly rejects. For Martin and Lisa, Helen's son and daughter-in-law, this tragedy is not an abstract legal argument. It is a wound that has not healed, and an ordeal they insist was marred by delays, inconsistencies, and a lack of transparency. Their belief, which they have expressed publicly, is that the system closed ranks the moment it became clear a police officer assigned to a royal escort was involved. These are their claims, not established fact. But for those who listen to their account, their frustration is palpable. From the start, they say they felt abandoned in a maze of bureaucracy. They recall their disbelief at hearing that crucial body cam footage from the officer who hit Helen was unavailable because he had forgotten to turn the camera on that day. Another officer's camera, the one that reportedly captured the impact, was later described as broken. The family, understandably, could not accept that the two devices most likely to hold key evidence were both unusable. The Independent Office for Police Conduct, however, confirmed that the second camera had indeed malfunctioned, and that an identical model was used to analyze technical data, such as frame rate. Whether this was a legitimate technical failure or an unfortunate coincidence remains a matter of interpretation, but the optics alone caused deep anguish. The family also claims that witness appeals were not issued for nearly 2 weeks, forcing them to consider knocking on doors themselves to find someone who had seen the collision. The IOPC disputes this timeline, stating witness boards were put up on May 19th, 9 days after the collision, and that necessary permissions delayed their installation. But for a grieving family desperate for answers, 9 days felt like 9 years. It is yet another example of how official timelines and lived experiences often clash in the emotional landscape of tragedy. As the investigation dragged on, the family faced another blow: delays in the post-mortem process. They alleged that the police and coroner prolonged the procedure, delaying Helen's funeral for 6 months. The IOPC said the delay was caused by late receipt of external expert reports, including a pathologist's report that took over a year to arrive. Whatever the reason, the impact on the family was devastating. They waited months simply to be allowed to say goodbye, a wait that many people would struggle to comprehend. But even amid the pain, there is a moment of human compassion at the heart of this tragedy. A royal messenger visited the family shortly after the collision, sharing that Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, had tried to get out of the car to help Helen, but was held back by her security team. The Duchess later sent a personal letter and flowers after Helen's passing. Those gestures did not change the outcome, but they offered a sliver of comfort in a moment of darkness. The family is clear. They do not blame Sophie. Their anger lies elsewhere, with the systems, decisions, and delays they believe prevented accountability. The trial eventually took place, and on the evidence presented, a jury reached a unanimous decision. P.C. Harrison was not guilty of causing death by careless driving. For some, the verdict was a reflection of the legal threshold of criminal negligence. For others, especially the Holland family, it was a devastating blow that suggested no one, not the officer, not the police, not the system, would be held responsible for Helen's death. What followed the verdict was not closure, but a renewed determination. Martin says they will pursue civil action against the Metropolis Police, not for vengeance, but for recognition. Recognition that Helen did nothing wrong. Recognition that pedestrians should feel safe crossing at a green signal. Recognition that a lapse in protocol, even if not criminal, can still be catastrophic. From a broader perspective, this tragedy touches upon something larger: the delicate and often misunderstood system of royal escorts. VIP escorts are meant to protect both the individuals being transported and the public at large. Yet this incident underscores how fragile that balance can be when even one officer fails to use every signal available to warn pedestrians. The family has since called for reforms to VIP escort procedures. Whether those reforms happen remains to be seen. Helen's story also highlights the human cost behind statistics. She was not just a name in a headline. She was a much-loved mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. She was active, independent, deeply involved in her family's life. She cared for her youngest son after his stroke. She walked her dogs daily. She traveled. She laughed. She lived. And in a single moment, that life, full, vibrant, and essential to those who knew her, was gone. Martin describes his mother's home as the center of the family, a bathing place, a source of comfort. Now, without her, that center is gone. They speak of a void that cannot be filled, a silence where her voice used to be. This is the reality that sits behind legal arguments and official statements. A family that must rebuild its future without the woman who held it together. From the perspective of public trust, this case also forces uncomfortable reflections.